Welcome to our channel. Today, we discuss a transformative era in human history, a period that reshaped societies, technologies, economies, and our very understanding of what it means to live in a rapidly evolving world. We're talking about the mid-21st century, the years between 2045 and 2060, a time that many historians now simply call the mid-century revolutions. This was not a single event or isolated breakthrough, it was an interconnected wave of revolutions spanning technology, culture, climate adaptation, societal values, global governance, and the human experience itself. Over the next few minutes, we're going to take you on a journey through this incredible quarter-century of change. Unpacking how we got here, what changed, and why these years continue to shape the world we live in today. When we talk about 2045 to 2060, the first thing to understand is that change did not happen overnight. Revolutions rarely do. They build on the exponential growth of ideas, innovations, and pressures that eventually reach a tipping point. At the start of this era, the world was already in the grip of several powerful trends. Climate change was no longer a future threat, it was a present reality. Artificial intelligence was advancing beyond narrow applications into systems capable of reasoning, learning, and creativity that rivaled human capacity. Biotechnology was making leaps once reserved for science fiction. Global geopolitics was in flux, with old alliances weakening and new networks forming. And societies everywhere were grappling with questions of identity, purpose, and the meaning of work in a world where machines could do so much more than ever before. In 2045, humanity stood at a crossroads. We had already seen the early stages of autonomous systems in transportation and industry, but these systems lacked real awareness or deep adaptability. Climate change had led to more frequent extreme weather events, impacting food systems, water security, and migration patterns. Renewable energy had grown massively, but fossil fuel infrastructure still dominated many parts of the global economy. The promise of advanced medicine was tantalizing, but widespread access remained unequal. All of these pressures set the stage for what was to come. One of the earliest revolutions we'll explore is the cognitive revolution in artificial intelligence. Around 2046, a new class of AI systems emerged that combined advanced neural architectures with self-directed learning frameworks, enabling them to autonomously improve their own performance across multiple domains without human intervention. These systems were not just tools, they became collaborators in innovation. They could design experiments, analyze data, generate hypotheses, and even draft policy recommendations. The term synthetic intelligence was coined to distinguish these systems from earlier, task-specific AI. As these synthetic intelligences matured, they began to integrate deeply with scientific research. Imagine an AI capable of running thousands of complex simulations per second, identifying patterns impossible for human researchers to discern, and proposing new approaches to age-old problems. Within a few years, breakthroughs in materials science, medicine, and energy were accelerating at an unprecedented rate. New materials with remarkable properties were developed, superconductors that operated at room temperature, ultra-lightweight alloys stronger than steel, and fabrics that could generate energy from movement and heat. In medicine, the impact was equally profound. Personalized treatments tailored to an individual's genetic, metabolic, and environmental profile became routine. Cures for diseases once considered incurable began to emerge. Genetic therapies that targeted individual cells with pinpoint accuracy reversed conditions previously thought irreversible. Lifespan extension became a topic of serious scientific pursuit, not because people were afraid to die, but because the quality of life in later years was transformed. Chronic diseases that once burdened millions were managed or eradicated in many parts of the world, but these developments were not without their challenges. As synthetic intelligences grew more capable, questions about control, ethics, and governance rapidly moved from academic debate to urgent public discourse. Who would own these systems? Who would be accountable if an AI made a harmful decision? Would superintelligent systems have rights? Could they act autonomously on matters of public consequence? Debates about AI personhood, liability, and the nature of autonomy became central themes in legal and philosophical circles. By the early 2050s, many nations had established regulatory frameworks for synthetic intelligence, but the approaches varied widely. Some countries embraced open innovation models with minimal restrictions, believing that rapid progress would benefit humanity as a whole. Others opted for strict oversight, prioritizing safety and societal stability over speed. These differing strategies created both cooperation and tension. Global conventions emerged, much like the climate accords of earlier decades, but enforcement and compliance remained uneven. Another defining transformation of this era was the way humanity responded to the climate crisis. In the 2040s, it was clear that mitigation alone, reducing emissions and transitioning to renewables, would not be enough. Climate change was already impacting sea levels, agricultural productivity, and weather patterns in ways that threatened billions of lives. A new paradigm took hold: climate resilience through technological and ecological innovation. Geoengineering concepts that were once taboo entered mainstream consideration, not as reckless experiments, but as carefully governed interventions. Carbon capture technologies scaled to levels that pulled billions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere annually. Large-scale reforestation efforts combined with engineered plants that absorbed far more carbon than traditional species helped stabilize atmospheric concentrations. Ocean ecosystems were restored using bioengineered microorganisms that cleaned pollutants and rejuvenated coral reefs. At the same time, cities around the world transformed their infrastructure to withstand rising temperatures and extreme weather. Floating cities, once a futuristic idea, became real in low-lying regions threatened by sea level rise. These cities were designed with modular architecture, integrated green spaces, and energy generation systems that produced more power than they consumed. Underground agricultural ecosystems ensured food security in areas where traditional farming had become untenable. Rural and urban communities alike adopted regenerative practices that revitalized soil, increased biodiversity, and supported localized food production. Water scarcity, once a looming crisis in many regions, was mitigated through innovations in desalination powered by clean energy and atmospheric water harvesting systems that extracted humidity from the air. The mid-century revolutions also reshaped the global economy. Automation and synthetic intelligence rendered many repetitive and even complex tasks obsolete in traditional industries. This shift forced societies to re-evaluate the nature of work. Universal Basic Income, UBI, once a fringe concept, became a reality in many countries as governments sought to decouple survival from traditional employment. People were free to pursue creative, social, and intellectual endeavors without the existential fear of job loss. As work transformed, so did education. The classroom of the early 2050s looked nothing like that of the early 2020s. Learning became lifelong, personalized, and immersive. Instead of standardized curricula, learners engaged with adaptive educational ecosystems that responded to their strengths, passions, and goals. Virtual and augmented reality environments allowed students to explore ancient civilizations, dive into the human bloodstream, or simulate planetary ecosystems, all from their own homes. Culturally, this era saw a renaissance of creativity. With basic needs met and cognitive partnerships with synthetic intelligences, humans pursued art, literature, music, and film in new and experimental forms. Global collaboration flourished as language barriers faded through real-time translation technologies. New genres of storytelling emerged, blending human emotion with algorithmic narrative structures. Yet amidst all this change, humanity faced profound questions about identity and purpose. If machines could outperform humans in nearly every task, what did it mean to be human? Philosophers, artists, spiritual leaders, and scientists explored this question from every angle. Some embraced a future of symbiosis with intelligent systems, seeing in it an opportunity to transcend limitations. Others cautioned against over-reliance on non-human intelligence, advocating for a return to introspection, community, and the wisdom carried through generations. These discussions were not merely academic. They influenced public policy, parenting philosophies, educational priorities, and even global diplomacy. Countries that invested in nurturing human creativity and emotional intelligence saw new cultural movements emerge, while others faced unrest as populations struggled with displacement and existential disorientation. Political systems themselves faced enormous strain. Traditional models of governance were challenged by the speed of change and the complexity of global issues that transcended national borders. In response, new forms of cooperative governance emerged. Regional federations, global councils, and transnational alliances arose to manage issues like climate response, AI ethics, space exploration, and resource distribution. The notion of sovereignty evolved. Nations shared data, research, and innovations in frameworks that emphasized collective well-being over competitive advantage. While tensions still existed, there was a growing recognition that global problems required global solutions. International treaties on climate adaptation, AI governance, and equitable access to life-enhancing technologies became the backbone of a new world order. Space exploration also reached unprecedented heights during this era. Private and public ventures collaborated to establish sustainable bases on the Moon and Mars. These outposts served not only as symbols of human achievement but as laboratories for innovation. Technologies developed for off-world living, from closed-loop life support systems to radiation-shielded habitats, found applications back on Earth, particularly in harsh environments. The discovery of microbial life remnants beneath the Martian surface ignited philosophical and scientific debates about life's prevalence in the universe. The implications were profound. If life emerged independently on another world, then the universe might be teeming with life in forms we have yet to imagine. This realization expanded humanity's perspective, fostering a sense of cosmic kinship and humility. As we look back on the mid-century revolutions, it's important to remember that progress was neither smooth nor uncontested. There were setbacks, crises, and ethical scandals. There were regions left behind, populations struggling to adapt, and conflicts born from scarcity and fear. But through collective effort, innovation, and a willingness to rethink long-standing assumptions, humanity navigated one of its most turbulent chapters. One of the lasting legacies of this era was a deeper appreciation for balance, a recognition that technological prowess must walk hand in hand with ethical grounding, that economic prosperity must align with ecological stewardship, and that human flourishing transcends material wealth. Societies began to evaluate success in terms of well-being, creativity, connection, and resilience. As individuals, people became more attuned to their inner landscapes as much as the external world. Mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and interdependence became core values. Communities fostered belonging through shared purpose rather than shared geography. Individuals discovered that their worth was not defined by productivity alone but by their capacity to love, create, reflect, and contribute in meaningful ways. Now, as we stand in the years beyond 2060, we continue to live with the ripples of that transformative period. The revolutions of 2045 to 2060 did not end, they evolved into new challenges and opportunities. But the lessons learned then continue to guide our choices today. We understand that progress is not a destination but a journey, one shaped by curiosity, courage, compassion, and collaboration. As we conclude our exploration of the mid-century revolutions, take a moment to reflect on your own place in this unfolding story. How do you engage with the technologies around you? How do you contribute to the collective well-being of your community and the planet? What innovations or values do you believe will define the next transformative era? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most pivotal periods in modern history. If you found this journey enlightening, inspiring, or thought-provoking, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what part of the mid-century revolutions you find most fascinating, and what topics you'd like us to explore next. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged.